welcome to Olsem Wanem. In this episode, we feature the high maternal mortality rate in the country, as well as family planning and maternal health. To start off with, we look at some tragic stories from rural areas where mothers face constant difficulties in terms of child delivery.
One time mama been died one time bell on 9 months on bell, and me die on wara. I'm hard drunk, hurry up, carry me go na and me die. I said, hard loan here on me blow go, me blow no got. Olsem tube tasol me pasar go kam. No got one pa something. One money got tube tasol sampla no got tube or sabe hard loan go kam.
Dan no kataw si mi plat kelong se susi diplamani before you mi stop das lo place kasi mo something long who's the meeting long ol mama saka na yo start doing close to the mi plat one per day so go about na but bible mi plat stop long.
Our statistics compared to the other countries in the world is very, very poor. More mothers, more babies are dying in Papua New Guinea than in many, many countries. I think we are second last in the ranking of countries that whose live births have been recorded. And that is not good.
With the country's complex geographical setting, accessing health services is a major challenge. Around 87% of the country's population live in the rural areas with little or no access to health services. The country's infant and maternal mortality rate remains high. Even hospitals within urban centers often face overcrowding in labor wards. Apart from childbirth complications, women also have to deal with other health challenges as well.
We have one of the highest incidences of cervical cancer in the world. So every year we estimate about 1,000 ladies get cervical cancer in this country.
How many of them die from cervical?
Well, eventually most of them all die because most of them never get diagnosed. We see that about 200 or so are diagnosed out of the thousands.
Welcome back as we look at high maternal mortality rate and family planning. In this segment, we highlight organizations that advocate on family planning and contraceptives. With the high cost of living, many organizations say family planning is vital for a sustainable society. Like any other country, Papua New Guinea's population has increased over the years. Today, our population stands at around 7 million people. The country is gradually developing economically and socially. Despite the fact that 87% of our population reside in rural areas, the growing population in the urban areas is another concern.
The number of people, a ratio of population from rural to urban began to change from maybe hardly anybody in the 60s to now around 15-16%. And the vast majority of that is in Port Moresby.
Challenges in rapid urbanization and increase in population growth include inadequate housing and overcrowding, competition of water and land, crime and diseases, and increasing unemployment, to name a few.
Inside New Island, people got big place to housing. Housing now becomes an issue because plenty long all houses, which used to be all properties for housing commission, now all tenant only been occupied, only buy them out finish.
Me not think but like an stable town, suppose me style this like in life where rental fee work like me one side. At the same time, price blow kai na work one tab na affecting me blow man mere.
We have a lot of settlements in Port Moresby which have not been planned properly. That is why people are suffering from water, they're suffering from other health facilities and basic or essential services.
Many people are now faced with economic challenges due to increasing prices of goods and services. With the ever-increasing population and high infant and maternal mortality rate, family planning becomes a very important topic. There are organizations within the country that address family planning and safe motherhood.
Well, my name's Kathy Folkes and I am the Program Development Manager for the Safe Motherhood Alliance PNG. And the Safe Motherhood Alliance is a local NGO that was championed by Dame Carol Kiddu back in 2009, and it came out of one of the recommendations from the Ministerial Task Force on Maternal Health, that there was a need for a mechanism to coordinate and be involved in advocacy and networking. And so that's predominantly what we do. It's about coordination, advocacy and networking. It's to push forward the issue of maternal health. And so one of the key aspects of what we do is that we are the Secretariat for the Parliamentary Group on Population and Sustainable Development, which has some wonderful champions of parliamentarians who voluntarily contribute their time to supporting the important causes such as maternal health, which includes family planning. And so we support leaders in that capacity, so we help them with information and data and whatever else it is that they need to help create better policies, better decisions, better funding allocation for a huge need that we have in Papua New Guinea. Because clearly there are a lot of girls and women who die from complications associated with pregnancy and childbirthing, and so it's a big and important issue that needs further addressing. So the two key strategies to reduce the number of those girls and women dying is, number one, is to have their babies in a supervised facility where there is access to emergency obstetric care. The second one is family planning. It's really important for women and girls to be able to choose for themselves when they would like to have a baby, how many babies they can afford and want to take care of, and the spacing in between those times.
Maristops is another organization that deals with family planning and contraceptives.
I work for an organization called Maristops Papua New Guinea, which is part of a global partnership. It's located in over 40 countries around the world, And Mary Stopes Papua New Guinea started in 2006. Okay, first and foremost, the services we provide, we have a core business of family planning, which comes under a branch of medicine called sexual and reproductive health care. We are located in 7 provinces, with the autonomous region of Bougainville being our latest province to go into. So we're located in 7 provinces, and in those provinces we have 4 centers, which are located in Western Highlands Province in Mount Hagen, Eastern Highlands Province in Goroka, we have Ley, Morobe Province, and we have NCD, which is Port Moresby, of course. Apart from the static centers that we have, out of the 7 provinces, we have what we refer to as mobile outreach services. Also to note here that our core business again is family planning. So these clinics provide the service of family planning basically.
Family planning and accessing contraceptive information is an individual choice, but not everyone has access to such information or service. We now look at family planning and the types of contraceptive methods available. But firstly, we hear the experiences of social workers who deal with women and girls who have difficulties in delivering their children at birth.
My experience would be of a young 15-year-old girl which I met there and who came in for implantation. And this 15-year-old had a first child when she was, she is 15, 16, 17 now, but she had a first child when she was 15 years old. And because her body was not ready and she did a lot of manual work, she gave birth at the 6th month. So the baby she gave birth in the village. And because she had no experience in cutting the umbilical cord and with there was no supervised delivery there, and she was having this baby in the village, her in-law, her husband's sister could not help too. So no one knew how to cut the umbilical cord. And these are the kind of situations that most Papua New Guineans are facing out there in rural areas. And this is just one example that came forth. So there was no one to help her cut the umbilical cord, and she could remember when she was around 8, 7 years old, and grandmother would grabbed her and went to assist a delivery somewhere. So when she could just have this vague picture of how her mother cut the umbilical cord, and she did it, she could only remember that, so she did it according to her memory. So she cut the umbilical cord herself. And that's a very compelling story that it was very emotional, but it showed how brave our women are. And that's the first baby. The time they arrived at the hospital, they couldn't save the baby. And she lost the baby at the hospital because maybe she didn't wipe the baby properly. Maybe she didn't look after the baby as she was supposed to. She was a first-time mother, and she lost her first baby. And just the next year, she fell pregnant again and had another baby. And this time, the baby, she was also in the village, so she gave birth in the village. And there was no other, the only person that was beside her was her husband, who helped her to deliver the baby and supervised her, and she had the baby, and then they had to come to 3 Mile Clinic to get her cleaned and get the baby checked. That's the second baby, who is now who is now a 1-year-old. And then the time that she came in to do the implant, she was carrying this little baby. It was very tiny. And this little baby, she also had her in the garden, because she was telling us that because she works hard in the garden, she thought it was just backache. She went and squatted and she had this baby. The water broke and there was no one in the side. She was in the garden, working in the garden. And after some time, she called out to the husband. The husband came And the husband didn't know where to get the razor blade to cut. Already the baby was out, to cut the umbilical cord. And because she did it herself before, she did it again. So this time, she came to the clinic and she wanted this implant because her body was, and then like while telling stories with her, it shows how brave she is, but at the same time it's a very risky business. And there's services available, but people cannot access them, maybe because they're too far away from the places where they can help them, or maybe because they don't have the information.
Maristopes, Papua New Guinea, we provide family planning methods or contraceptive methods or birth controls, as others would see it on that view. Firstly, I'll start with the dual methods. Okay, that's the ECP or emergency contraceptive pill, and it lasts for 72 hours. So this pill is taken when, in terms of rape cases, a female comes and they take that, so she won't get pregnant. The second dual method is the condoms. So you can use that, and also it protects you from STI and HIV and AIDS. Okay, now I'll move on to the short-term methods. That's the contraceptive pills. That's on a monthly basis that a female consumes. And depot injectable, that's the injection. A female takes that for 3 months. Now to the long-term methods, that's the implant, the famous one which most ladies, they really want to get an implant. And IUD, which is the intrauterine device, and it lasts for 10 years. And then we have the permanent methods, which are TL, it's tubal ligation for females, and NSV for for males, pardon me, that's non-scalpel vasectomy.
Family planning, according to the National Family Planning Policy that the Department of Health has endorsed, states that every woman, girl of reproductive age is entitled to receive family planning services for themselves, to choose whether or not they would like to take up a family planning option or not. So that means, as a girl and a woman, you can choose for yourself if you want to access or not. So it doesn't depend upon a parent signing off or a husband signing off or giving permission. Certainly there needs to be discussions, particularly between a married couple. They need to make that decision for themselves. But ultimately, a woman's body is a woman's body, and she should be able to have a say over her body. So family planning should be available to everyone, and we must remember that adolescents also have a need. You know, there is a big issue with teenage pregnancies, and I think approximately 15% of young people, or young girls, are pregnant or have already had a child, so between 15 and 19. And that age group is high risk because you have a developing body. They're not ready for childbirthing, so there is an added risk that that girl will experience complications and potentially death.
My advice would be to look at your financial status, and if you are able to look after that, and also considering a mother's health, most importantly. She's a human, she has a body that needs to, you know, relax and recover from just giving birth. You don't have to put someone through all that. She's not a machine. And always consider that her body is unique in a way, and if there are fathers out there, they should take it of the message that you cannot overwork a machine. In the end, it just goes bagged and it doesn't work. So it's just like that. You have to have respect for your wives, your sisters and your mothers, and respect their bodies. So yeah.
But right now with organizations such as Marie Stopes Papua New Guinea, Safe Mother Alliance, Susu Mamas, and also with the help of the government, we are strategically planning to disseminate such awareness messages to our people because we want a sustainable future.
Welcome back. We now take a look at a family planning film that was produced by Walt Disney in 1986. This film shows how the presence of family planning can affect a society, as well as the impacts of the absenteeism of family planning.
Ladies and gentlemen, today our program is about, one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please bear with us a moment. Now, if our special assistant is ready, we will picture for you one of the Earth's most unusual inhabitants, man. Throughout the world, of course, there are all sorts of men. They look different in different places and have different ways of life. But basically, all men are the same. So to make things easier, let's put them together into one, and let this one stand for all. He's a common man, just like you and me. By nature, man is one of the animals, but he has something the rest do not have. Human intelligence, the ability to reason and plan ahead. Other animals are at the mercy of the world around them. But by his ability to reason, man has learned to improve his lot. Carrying him ever upward, this ability may someday make man master of all he surveys. Well, nearly all, for at his side, of course, is woman. But this upward rise is being slowed by the sheer weight of numbers. The family of man is increasing at an astonishing rate, almost doubling every generation. Ironically, this too comes about through man's intelligence. To understand something of why this is so, let's picture one small community and let it stand for communities around the world. Now, to begin with, the number of people in the community remained about the same for many generations. There was almost a balance between the large number of babies born each year and the large number of people who died. The large number of deaths were brought about primarily by disease, often raging epidemics, and by famine. Most tragic of all, many of those taken were small children. Then, in the space of a single generation, man began to change these conditions. There was great progress in medical science. There was more food and better distribution. There were vastly improved methods of health and sanitation. Now let's go back to the balance and see what happens. There are still about the same number of babies being born each year. But today, deaths are cut in half or better, especially among children. The old balance is upset. Those who live now instead of dying are added each year to the number of people in the community. Of course, as more and more people are added, their needs increase. New industries are being developed to provide more goods. But whatever is done, it is not enough. But to see better what this means, let us look at a smaller group of people. Suppose we start with a middle-sized family. Father and mother, and just a few children. Now imagine that there is a house to live in, and a plot of land which the father works to support them all. There is an ox to pull the plow, and the land yields a good crop. With only this many at a meal, there is enough for all. and even a little left over to provide money for some comforts and modern conveniences. The mother doesn't have to work too hard and stays healthy and happy. The children, too, are healthy and happy and go to school to gain an education. Even with modest resources, this family is doing well. But now let's paint another picture of this family. And suppose that in time, more and more children are born. But let us also suppose that the house and the plot of land remain the same. Now the entire crop must be used just for food. But even so, with this many mouths to feed, there won't be enough to go around. Of course, there will be no money for modern conveniences. Even worse, the ox can no longer be fed, and the work must be done by human effort. The mother will have too much to do. She'll be tired and cross, and her health will suffer. The children will be sickly and unhappy, with little hope for the future. And when the sons grow up, the land will have to be divided into so many small pieces that no one will have enough. Even if the family moves to the city, with little money and many mouths to feed, there will be the same poverty as before. This picture can be true for countless families if the number of children born is left to chance. But fortunately, this need not happen anymore.
He does not know what he is saying. That's the way life is. Nothing can be done.
Today, things have changed. Modern science has given us a key that makes possible a new kind of personal freedom, family planning.
Family planning? Never heard of it.
Family planning means that without affecting normal relations as man and wife, you can decide in advance the number of children you will have and when you will have them. You can have one child, or two, or more. You can space them out over a number of years. You can choose to stop having them altogether, but you can start again if you change your mind. You can have only the children you want, and only when you want them. That's what family planning can mean to you.
Well, that sounds good, but talk is cheap. Can you make that idea really work?
Today, family planning can be accomplished by several effective methods. Merely by taking pills or using simple devices.
And that's all for this episode. If you have any comments or stories, please contact us via the address on your screen or visit us on our Facebook page. For now, enjoy the rest of your viewing.